Hi everyone. I just wanted to share a thought that just came to me just now. Um, I meant to be doing an assignment, but I was just thinking in thought of when a person is wounded, say, and then we use the term, say, like avoidant or yeah, even like I was just looking at a client that I had done one time. And I was thinking, oh, probably maybe a little bit bipolar, like, but beautiful guy, maybe just like a little bit of BPD or something like that. But just highly creative, highly interesting, charismatic, but a lovely soul as well. And so what I was just thinking with that, because, we sort of obviously sometimes along the way maybe break up with somebody or things like that, and you're going, oh my God, they were like so bipolar, or they were so BPT or something. And what I want to say is those people too deserve love. They too are just a wounded child. And they're still just symptoms. And I'm talking to anyone that has these symptoms as well, that you are worthy of love and you are lovable. And it is what I will say to that, though, sometimes we do need to protect ourselves when we're dealing with personalities that are maybe a little bit out of balance, a little bit erratic. We do have a choice. We do have an individual choice whether we choose how long, we choose to walk that path with them, and help them along the way, and not put them down or shame them or things like that. If they have a brain snap or things like that, help hold space. Help hold space for that person. It's just 222 on the clock. That you get to be somebody on their healing journey, whether you choose to stay or, whether you even know that yet. Yeah, you get an opportunity to help somebody heal and to be a better person and to be a more whole and sound person. And what they choose to do with that. Sometimes when people have trauma, they do reject love and they do reject safety because it's a patterning thing, and we gravitate to what we know until we know different. And generally speaking, it will be either one of the parents that we will gravitate to, whether it be a male or female. You might get a girlfriend that reminds you of your father, or vice versa, a girl that reminds you, or a guy that reminds you of your mother. So it's not gender specific, it's just 333. It's not gender specific of how the patterning works, but it's definitely there until we choose to look at it. And until we basically do parent healing work, mother wounds, father wounds, and acknowledge those wounds and our pain, that because like attracts like energy. So if you have attracted somebody in who has these traits and these symptoms, these wounds, then there's somewhere in there that there's a mirror. It mightn't look the same, mightn't look the same wounds. One might need reassurance and one might have control issues. So it's kind of that sort of thing, but both need to have that validation, so it can be a similar thing like that. And so that's why, and so I just want to draw back to being worthy of love even though you have these symptoms, or CPTSD. It's just 444. And the reason why I know this is because I done some work, some shadow work and things like that on myself, and some digging deep, and what have you, into different archetypes and attachments. And yeah, and one of the archetypes was, or one of the styles, sorry, was attachment style was avoidant attachment style, and then another one was anxious attachment style. Oh, the others have escaped me right now. Then you do have secure attachment style and, you know, abandonment. Yeah, and I did have very much a fear of abandonment along the way, an abandonment wound. And I did have an avoidant attachment style, and I did have an anxious attachment style. Later on, I redone it, you know, the quiz, and I had a secure attachment style. So, which was nice to know that I had, you know, it had worked. And this is what I'm talking about. So these things can change. So just because you might have, you know, you might resonate and vibe with something and have that as your baseline existing in your life right now to date, but when you start to do the work, you know, work on yourself and heal, work on healing yourself, and our triggers and our trauma and things like that, then those things can change, absolutely. And so I want to say two things. Don't just ride somebody off because they have, you know, maybe a greater wound in a sense than yours, or the symptoms might be more predominant, or and you know, hypervigilance is very much so heightened states of awareness. Well, it can seem as paranoia, but it's not. It's not, because I'm not a jealous person. I'm not an envious person, though. Yeah, like I was insecure, and yeah, so it's sort of like these little things that can sort of show up until we look at them, until we love those parts, and our shadow, basically our shadow aspects, all boil back down to our basically our childhood wounds. So it's, you know, the layerings unfold. Though I will say, before you even start to go to those things, come back to the self. Self-love, self-care, and self-acceptance are the key baseline for your nervous system to even go there, you know, to even go any deeper. If you try and go any deeper when you've still got all of these things that are exposed, and it's like a landmine, you know, you just don't know what you're going to be hitting on. So at least put the protective armor on, and like, AKA having your own back. When we do self-care, self-love rituals and start to acknowledge those sort of aspects and nurture ourselves, then yeah, you don't realize how much we don't trust ourselves. And so when we start to self-care, self-love, you know, nurture ourselves, then we start to build that level of safety and trust with ourselves, and we can have our own backs, maybe for the first time ever. So, you know, we're not abandoning ourselves daily, you know, in different aspects, in different relationships, in different moments. And we can hold that space for ourselves, that we can even go there and even look at these things. So do self-care and self-love is the entry level. And yeah, it's an important aspect the whole way through, because again, you can't be complacent with those things, because if you just go back to as it was, then you're sort of going to go back to like a little bit of how it was. Yeah, so it's like developing like these new ways of being, and incorporating them into your lifestyle, and just adding in and swapping out of ways of being, and developing new coping skills, coping mechanisms. And yeah, some might be a little bit harder to shake up than others, but even still, just crowd it out. If you can get to like an 80-20 way of living, that even if you've got a particular habit or even an addictive habit for now, don't worry about that for now. just, you know, love on yourself and add things in around it, that at least then you're sort of building your self-worth tank, and then you can come back in, or then you can get assistance with that, you know, do X amount of background work by yourself and then come back in with maybe an assistant of some sort, because, you know, Lord knows we need help, you know, every now and then. And it's important to be our own teacher and our own healer, and be able to self-soothe ourselves and regulate our own nervous systems. Though sometimes we really do need support, and that's not a bad thing. That is not a bad thing. It's necessary, because sometimes we do need our hand held, or to help us, you know, shine a light on and identify and point out a few of our blind spots that we just don't know, or we know we can watch ourselves do it, but our ego is still just ducking and weaving and can sort of, you know, angle in on some area and aspect. So sometimes we do need that extra support and help. So it's just 11. And yeah, and that's cool. There wouldn't be so many different support networks, different therapists, practitioners, coaches, healers, you know, if support workers, if it wasn't needed. You know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be ashamed to ask for help, or even reach out to an anonymous helpline. So yeah, back to what I was trying to say, but everything that I'm just adding in there is relevant, because it all stacks on each other. And what I'm saying as well is, whether somebody has written you off for having BPD, or you know, bipolar, you know, whatever the terminology is, CPTSD, it's like you are not at fault for having those symptoms, because it was something that happened beyond your control before you even knew otherwise. Like, from 0 to 3 months is like one of the most impactful states on our nervous system, on our brains, and what shapes our lives up until we know better. And then the next most important stage is from 0 to 3 and 0 to 7. So all of that is our subconscious. And a lot of our parents, especially if you are, I'm going to say 20 plus, that it was kind of like a little bit more of a, you know, oh, well, they won't remember, you know, just speaking about this and that, maybe fighting in front of kids, arguing in front of kids, on the phone in front of kids, you know, having conversations in front of kids. And they download it, you know. We are their biggest teachers, and they learn from our actions, not what we tell them to do. They learn from what they witness, and they learn from their home environments. So again, it's not anyone being at fault. It really is, you know, the chicken or the egg kind of situation. And, you know, what comes first, it's hard to say. But the thing is for us to stop it at us. And once we can be aware of generational patterning and trauma and cycles, then we can sort of acknowledge them and sort of be aware of our own patternings, our own projections, our own triggers, our own traumas, and our own wounds, you know, and what ticks us off, what we're sensitive about, what, yeah, so it all matters. But what I just want to say is, you know, if you've broken up with somebody and that has been something that has been said, or if you know of this, then it's not saying you are not worthy of love or you don't qualify for love. And even if somebody rejects you because of, all it means really is you've got some more work to do. And what I would highly recommend, same with ADHD, any kind of neurodivergent brain patterning and way, and mental health issues, you know, like it mightn't even be, you know, just highly depressed, highly anxious, highly hypervigilant and things like that, highly sensitive, overly defensive, overly controlling, you know, all of those things are symptoms of, you know, and can maybe go under another umbrella, but really they're all just labels and they are all just symptoms to say something's out of balance. Anxiety to me is just your soul screaming at you and getting louder and really starting to nudge you to say your soul wants your attention. They are all just symptoms basically saying your soul wants attention, and there's something there that needs to be healed, something there that needs to be looked at, and something there that needs to be addressed and loved and accepted and released. And yeah, it is easier said than done, especially when you're at the start. So don't even worry about that just yet. Just love on yourself. Just self-love, self-care, you know, and self-care can be, it's the little things. Yeah, you know, just making yourself a cup of tea or getting yourself a glass of water in the mornings, taking a glass of water to bed with you. Yeah, just like maybe just like a little head massage, you know, or just, yeah, rubbing the back of your neck. Maybe buying yourself like a little jumper. This jumper was like from Temu for like, I don't know, under $15, but it was just something that I wanted. And it's not always about retail therapy, and it's not always about vanity. So it's those little things, maybe drawing yourself a bath, maybe grabbing a book, maybe letting yourself have the afternoon off guilt-free from whatever, you know, that's just reeling around in your mind. It might be washing up for yourself, because then you feel better. You know, self-care, you know, it's still like, you know, under the umbrella of self-care, an act of self-love, an act of service. So yeah, you know, just maybe taking yourself for a drive to go and sit in a park, or yeah, going for a walk. Yeah, just buying yourself a little sweet treat instead of saying to yourself, no, you know, you can't have that because ... And that half the time is just your old inner parent. And think about it, when you start to project at yourself like that, ask yourself, who do I sound like? Whose voice is that? Because 9 times out of 10, it won't be your own. So you might hear it frequently, but it won't be your own. So yeah, and yeah, so what I just want to say as well is, and then as well on the other end of the foot, you know, the other, you know, shoe on the other foot, other end of the scale, you have a right to be in a relationship or to decide when to draw the line as well. So sometimes we can maybe help someone so far, and you'll know when the time is up. And when you just know, yeah, you know, I don't think there's anything else here that I can teach you. I'm now just hurting myself. I'm just getting wounded here, and the rest, you got to cut the cord, you know, and just, you know, I wish you well, you know, I wish you love, I wish you healing, I wish you peace. And I love you, but I gotta go. You know, I love you, but I gotta love you from afar, from here on in. Otherwise, you know, I don't want to not, you know, not love you. Or even if it's gotten to that point, you know, you still can love them from afar after you've gone, and you want to be able to love them from afar because you want inner peace, and forgiveness equals inner peace. Forgiveness equals freedom. So to punish someone energetically for years, really, you are reminding yourself of that thing daily. So if you want to forget that person, then you've got to forgive them. So if you want to not relive that pain, that shame, that whatever, that humiliation, that, you know, that anger, whatever it is, if you want to let go of that, you've got to let go of that person. And it's not saying, let's go and have a cup of coffee. It's not saying, come and have dinner with me. It's not saying, let's have sex again. It's not saying it's okay. What it is saying is, as Louise Hay, I will borrow her words, I forgive you for not being the way that I needed you to be. And when you think about it like that, it simplifies a lot of things. Yeah, and again, it doesn't make anything okay. And again, you might need to do more inner child work and things like that, because if you're really still stuck on it, then there's really still a part of you that's hurting about that. So you gotta go there. You can't rush it. You can't really spiritual bypass, but by acknowledging it, if you think about it like this, sometimes some things need to be honored for a period of time, over a period of time, and it's the layers. You know, again, the entry level might be just being able to look at it, and then it might be, you know, feeling into it, or, you know, then, you know, starting to see it from the other person's point of view. Again, whoever has done something to you, whoever has hurt you, whether it be a parent, a partner, you know, whatever, they too are a wounded child. So when you can understand their story with compassion, at least understand it, and be able to have compassion. Again, it's not saying it's okay for what they've done to you, but to view their story and see their little inner child thinking they too were just a scared baby, or they too were just a scared, helpless little child that didn't know any better. And the suppression, then it's just double two. Double 22. This is why it's so important to do our healing work and our inner work and acknowledge those things, because once upon a time they weren't bitter, they weren't aggressive, they weren't, you know, in some cases evil, you know, they weren't, you know, nasty and mean, whatever the case may be, of so hurtful. And these things happen along the way. So we have to be careful and keep ourselves in check that we don't end up bitter, or we don't end up angry, because everyone's got a story, but it doesn't make it okay, does it? So, but what does make it okay is just seeing everybody, including ourselves, through the eyes of compassion. And it starts with ourselves, because when we can love ourselves enough that we can start to let ourselves off the hook, and then compassion for thyself, compassion for our story, compassion for our inner child, and everything that we have done along the way that has hurt another because we were hurting. So, and when we can understand that, then we can extend that out to another. And that's how we help heal the world, by healing ourselves. Because how we interpret and acknowledge and move in the world matters. And it makes such a difference, because if we're still thinking that we're, you know, self-righteous and justified to throw ourselves around and throw our energy around because ... then, you know, well, what's to say that that person doesn't see their story, you know, their actions as justified? So it's not about that. It's, you know, it's compassion. And it doesn't matter how horrific the thing is, you know, just have that compassion for even before, and have that understanding. And then you can start to lean into, you know, bridge the gap to forgiveness. So yeah, I've said it before, understanding and compassion are the bridge to forgiveness. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. And yeah, so we are all worthy of love, though sometimes it really is, we are doing ourselves a favor, both internally and externally, for what we call in and attract, and or how we choose to operate and speak and things like that inside a relationship. So until we do our healing work to a certain degree, we're either just going to pull in more heartache and hurt other people. So it's like hurt people. So we have to take responsibility for our own healing journey, our own actions, our own words, and the energy that we throw around. You know, it's that classic case too. We wouldn't just, or hopefully not, you know, throw litter around everywhere, because you would go, that's my mess, you know, pick it up. So again, you know, personal responsibility for our energy as well. We need to keep that in check as well. So yeah. So, but yeah, just sending love to all and happy healing.